Coming up next, my Mark Meets guest is the maverick businessman John Mappin, who turned down £1 million from the government to house migrants in his Cornish Castle hotel. He's also a good friend of Donald Trump. What is the Orange One up to? Will he return to the White House? I'll be asking his close pals shortly. And don't forget, in just 15 minutes' time, Hugh Edwards and his media pals think that story is over. Well, not on my watch. I'll be dealing with the BBC star at 10 o'clock in my Take at 10. You won't want to miss it. Mark Meets is next. And tonight, the maverick businessman and newspaper publisher John Mappin, who made headlines when he refused to accept £1 million from the government to house migrants in his stunning Cornish castle, the Camelot Castle Hotel. He's also a friend of Donald Trump, having won over 100 grand predicting Trump's victory in 2016. He started his career selling silver balloons outside Harrods and now boasts a media and hospitality empire. The drinks are on him. John, welcome to the show.
Well, very good to see you, Mark.
Thrilled to have you in with us. Good luck with that wobbly stool, by the way. £1 million to accommodate migrants. Why did you say no? That's a lot of money.
Well, it was actually more than $1 million. I don't know where that figure came from, but what it would do to the local community. And initially I thought it was a joke. And I have to credit GBNews and Nigel for picking the story up, because it went completely viral after you did your segment on it. And we got email after email after email from people who were staggered. I mean, I couldn't believe it. It even ended up going viral in America. It went on to Tucker Carlson, and that was extraordinary.
And this is a high-end, five-star style hotel?
Yeah, well, you see, what they wanted me to do was fire all the staff, and or a goodly number of them. I think we'd have left with about 3. And then I said, well, what if the breakages in the hotel? Because it's a fairly pleasant hotel. And
ornate.
It's quite ornate. And they said, oh, don't worry, we'll pay for the costs of that. And that I just couldn't believe. But I also said to them, well, what are you going to do to the local community? What's going to happen to these people? Is the government doing anything about that? And they said, no, nothing at all. And then, of course, you guys picked it up and it went viral. And I thought, when the government actually said that they were going to change their policy. And, you know, because actually you guys raised so much noise about it. Here's what you're not going to believe, Mark. 3 weeks ago, I had another letter.
Another offer?
Another offer. And they'd come up with another solution, but now they've gone back to the luxury hotel solution. And this time, I called the company, which was a different company, and I made copious notes and documentation of the telephone call. And it's just outrageous. They wanted to do it again. And, of course, we've seen what's happened in Wales, in... Llanelli, yeah. Unbelievable.
Absolutely shocking, desperate for communities. And you would have made money, so you've turned down a good income in order to preserve the status of the hotel as just that.
Well, I think you have to look at what it does to the local community.
Yeah.
And it would have devastated. I mean, we are the main employer in town, and our staff have been with us for decades.
And it's a popular local hub. People go and have dinner there, they have drinks there, and they stay there.
Of course
they have weddings and all the rest of it.
Oh, all sorts of things, yeah. Well, it is the hub of the village.
Bar mitzvahs, all the rest of it.
All that, you know. Absolutely.
Let's talk about Donald Trump. You made over 100 grand predicting that he would become president. What's your appraisal of his time in the White House?
You know, I think he did a good job under the circumstances. I think he came into an assault from day one, really. I think the economy boomed, and that, of course, is really the measure of any presidency or leadership. I think he did a great job, and I think it's a good chance he'll be in again.
No wars either,
no.
Unlike now under Joe Biden and Ukraine, with the Americans sending cluster bombs to Ukraine, which the Brits say is the wrong thing to do. You've written a letter to Rishi Sunak. What have you called for?
Well, just to get together, because it is completely endable. I had a meeting a few days ago at the Russian embassy with the ambassador and with actually the military attaché. And there is no question at all that this whole thing can be put to bed in less than 24 hours.
Do the Americans want this war to end?
Well, I don't think they do, and I think that's the problem. But I think we as Britain, with our tradition of diplomacy and supposed intelligence, we should really not be playing into the Americans' game. We've tended to do this in the past few years. But what we have to remember is that every day you and I are sitting here and we're putting our children to bed, and we have, this is brother killing brother. The bloodshed has got to come to an end.
And Donald Trump has said he would end that war in days. Do you believe him?
I know it's solvable in hours.
And what
from my own
what do you think the solution looks like? Do the Russians get Crimea? Do they get a guarantee that Ukraine doesn't join NATO?
I think the first thing is we need to be honest about the actual reasons that it started. And that has to be part of any negotiation. What we're being fed at the moment in the West is really false information about the origins of the war and why it started. And for any argument to resolve, whether it's a domestic or whether it's something more serious, such as an argument that could result in nuclear war, you have to be honest about the origins. So that requires communication. It does not require cluster bombs. It does not require depleted uranium. What it requires is getting Rishi Sunak, Putin, into a room, and for him to, Rishi and I went to the same school. So I know he's bright enough to sort this out, and I believe in him. And what my letter, which you can read on Twitter, we lay that out quite clearly.
Well, look, I hope you prevail, because it's important to look at any solution to this awful conflict in which thousands of people have lost their lives. I'm no Russian sympathiser, let me tell you. Putin is something of a monster, potentially a war criminal, but you've got to get those people around the table and you've got to end this war. More power to you, John. Brilliant to have you on the show. We'll catch up soon. And let me tell you, the Camelot Castle Hotel is open for business in the most beautiful part of the country, so check it out. Highly recommended. Next up.